What's up, amigos? Coming to Jaime here. Today we're going to go over a V Premium Nightrose deck profile. And it's been a while since I touched Nightrose, especially in the V Premium format, so there are some minor updates that I wanted to talk about. It's actually been top in the past few months in V Premium events such as the BSFO and also even some of the Vision tourneys, and so I wanted to cover it a little bit more in depth and also credit some amigos too that have done well with this deck too. So I'm going to go over some of the card choices and some combo plays, and we'll end up with the video with thought process of course too. What's up, amigos? We have an awesome playmat over here for October. It is actually by Next Level Gaming. They just came out with this Halloween special. As you can see, it is Zorga using Alchemagic to revive some units that we know from Granblue, and it's really epic. And so if this is something that you'd like to purchase, use the affiliated link provided in the description. So as we can see, like, the Nightrose winning image has not really changed at all. So the big thing with Nightrose is that it's known for the four Skull Dragon attack combo, and so that's where you have Skull Dragons that are really big, ideally over 40, 50, 60, 70k, depending on how much you have in your drop zone. And that could be easily feasible done with cards such as over here, Navigator, right? And then there's also an inclusion now of a card called Ruin Shade. So those who don't know or haven't seen this card in a while, you know what it does is that when it attacks, you can mill the top 2 cards of your deck. It'll get +4. And so that power up not only makes it into a 13k, but because of that, now you're able to hit over 4 Vanguards too. That may be a 10k base as well. So during those grade 2 turns, that actually could matter. There's been a lot of Bermuda Triangle in V Premium, and there's a lot of like different decks too, Pacifica, Prisms, and so many more varieties too. But ultimately, those decks are aggressive. All right, and so one of the things that you want to do is be able to be aggressive in the early game if you can. Not only that, Nightrose needs to be full power, and full power looks like for Nightrose is having options in the drop, but also to have like the 10 or more cards conditions, so such as cards like Negrabone and Greed Shade become full life, right? And the faster you can get that, the better. And especially with Skull Dragon being able to that finisher as well. So we still rely on that, but we also have the inclusion of Beatrice now, that basically we're used to, you know, attacking with Nightrose, Counterblast, Call a Column. Now we have Columbard that used to Counterblast and bring back another Skull Dragon. So that was a 2 CD turn, but now with Beatrice, it's just a Soul Blast. And so you just only really need to work with 1 Counterblast at that point. Negrabone is free, it's just discard a superior call, something from the drop zone. And really there's cards in here that help countercharge as well. So you can actually do an effective turn with just 1 Counterblast with enough soul, of course, too, and keep in mind. But at the same time, it's just like things make it a lot easier to be fluid. And so I'll start going into some of the core card choices and go from there. And also, as you can see with the sponsorship today, there's an amazing Halloween mat. Just to give you a little glimpse of it, Zorga, we're using Alchemagic to actually revive some of those key granblue units such as Nightrose and Lord of the Seven Seas and so on. So it's just really cool. And again, with sponsorship, click affiliated link, support the channel. But let's go into more of the grade 3s now. So onto the grade 3s, we're playing 4 of the Nightrose, 3 of the Skull Dragon, and 2 of the Beatrice. So these cards are very vital in the grade 3 slot. We used to play 6 grade 3s before, where it was just 2 Skull Dragon, but we upped it out to 3. 1 because of Sharonay, 2 because of damage denial, or not damage denial, if it went to damage. At that point, you kind of cry at that point, because you want 2 Skull Dragons to be able to do the 4 attacks combo. So that's why we play at least 3. Beatrice, again, it's like that substitute for Columbard, especially during the battle phase, but it could be also used main phase too as a rearguard to be able to build a field as well. So that could be very vital. And so not only that, but Nightrose has that continuous skill that gives all the units +5k, and at the end of the battle they retire as well. So that's very big too, because you get to reuse those units during the battle phase. And so even if you have like certain cards like Ripple Banshee in the hand, you can call it, it'll attack and it'll actually be able to hit, and then it could die. So then you can actually revive it during the battle phase to Soul Blast 1 to draw a card, and guess what, you just broke even at that point and be able to use the skill too. So things like that help a lot too. And Skull Dragon gets 2k for every, you know, unit in the drop, or card in the drop, let's say, and that works on Vanguard Circle. So if you misride, you have a beefy Vanguard at least, but ideally you want it as a rear guard. And of course Beatrice, you know, Soul Blast 1, revive anything. This is really cool. So if you do have like milling enough in the early game and you're still in grade 2, for example, and you have Beatrice and Negrabone in the drop zone, you can actually superior call the Beatrice and then Soul Blast to revive something else, and you all of a sudden start building a field pretty easily at that point too, if you think about it. So little things like that, but ultimately it's that grade 3 turn and further and beyond that this card really shines too at that point too. Now into the grade 2s, we are playing 11 grade 2s, so we're playing 4 Greed Shade, playing 4 Columbard, 2 of the Ruin Shade, and 1 of the Ghost Ship. And so with the basics with Granblue, you want to have both Greed Shade and Columbard maxed out as soon as possible. You know, with Columbard, as soon as you ride it to Vanguard or on Rearguard Circle, it's called, you can Counterblast 1, search for any card from the deck, mill it, and then you can superior call any card from your drop zone. So you don't have to mill or revive the card that was milled, for example. And so that's the biggest thing, that you can get your key pieces that you still need. But again, it helps with attack extending during the battle phase too. But it's just an overall great card. So sometimes you may use the Counterblast to get Navigator, you may use the Counterblast to get Ghost Ship in the grade 2 turn and other key pieces. You know, a Greed Shade if you really need to get that copy of the grade 3 Nightrose from the drop if you don't have one in hand. And so what Greed Shade does is that when it's placed, you can discard 1, mill 2, grab any card from your drop zone and into your hand. So Greed Shade is going to be one of those key cards that really help with you building a proper hand to be able to do your turns, but at the same time later on it's going to build those defenses. And as you face clans such as like Bermuda Triangle, they have force markers, and force ones will accumulate over time, and it'll be harder to guard with. And ideally, if you can guard with less cards, the better it is for you, so you can survive and actually be able to do that for attack Skull Dragon turn, right? So that's the big thing. The last thing is over here, the 2 Ruin Shades and the Ghost Ship. So with Ruin Shade, we are playing a 3 Navigator, but we're also playing 2 Ruin Shade. And the biggest thing is that sometimes players will damage the Nayu, so riding a Columbard may not be the best thing, to be quite frank. If you have no CV, Columbard is useless if you ride it to Vanguard, and if you don't see another one, you can't use it as a rear guard at that point. You had to hope to see the second copy or the third copy, you know, that kind of stuff. And so another right target would be Ruin Shade. It works on Vanguard Circle too, and again, if you attack, mill 2, it gets plus 4k onto the end of the turn or onto the battle. And the key thing with this is that, you know, the Force Vanguards, you're dealing with that, so you need to have some of that aggression, but it also helps mill in that case. And so if you have other cards like Greed Shade, you're discarding for other cards or healing and then resolving a Navigator, you get pretty much get close to the 10 cards in the drop zone pretty easily at that point. So it just helps further with that too. And then if you have a booster, you know, with, you know, Columbard calling a Ripple Shade, Ripple Banshee, for example, then that unit can attack by itself, so you can be aggressive as well. So what I like about this is just the flexibility, you know, being able to call something. With Navigator, there are times where you do have to call that second card, but it means another card from hand. And in certain matchups, it may matter more. So if defensively, you may not have a good turn at that point, and so you even rely on cards like Ghost Ship over here, where, you know, at the end of the battle, one, it gets plus 15k, so it's a 24k beater, and then when Nightrose is 29k, and then at the end of the battle you can draw and retire this unit, and so that gives you building up to that hand, especially some cards like Megalobone that make you discard, so you break even at that point. And so you want to use cards like Nightrose, Beatrice, Columbard to revive those units and start like plussing at that point. So you are going into that back and forth between, such as like a matchup with Bermuda Triangle again. So, you know, with Ruin Shade, it's just one of those cards that you can ride or call as a 1 card to help you mill for potential key pieces too. Not only that, but it's a unit that you can use to attack, where Navigator, you rest 2 units, now those units just kind of chill that for that turn. So those are the key pros and cons, but obviously, you know, with Navigator, which I'll go into, has its own pros too as well. Onto the grade 1s, we're playing 13 grade 1, so as you can see, we're playing 4 Cutlass, 3 Navigator, 4 Megalobone, and 2 Ripple Banshee. With the basics, we have the top row over here. With Cutlass, we've seen kind of back and forth because there's the new Ghosty support that we've been using, such as Damien and Jesse the Ghosties. They countercharge as well. But with this particular build with Nightrose, you also appreciate a card such as Cutlass. So Cutlass is that you bind another copy of itself from the drop, and you can call this from drop into a rearguard circle, and you can countercharge 1. So if you're, for example, if your opponent, whatever, so decides to damage the Nayu, you can still countercharge and be able to use that counterblast during the battle phase, and then use a card like Beatrice to soul blast to still get those 5 attacks. Very key thing. Not only that, but those numbers actually matter. If you call Cutlass behind, it's a rear guard that you can work with. It can be an 11k booster for a lot of your columns, and if you have 11k behind a 22k Nightrose Vanguard, guess what? You make 33k, which is force numbers again at that point, which is relevant against the Bermuda matchups. It's just another 5k threshold that they have to worry about, because most of the time the triggers that you have, such as like critical triggers, they're going to be applying to Skull Dragons too. So if you can make the Vanguard a little more threatening too, that just makes it a lot easier for you to actually win. And so that's why Cutlass is very essential. There is a play that you can build a field too, which I've shown before, where if you just have 1 card and you have certain cards in the drop zone, you can build a field of 3 cards and still be able to do an effective multi-attack. You won't have necessarily the Skull Dragons to start off with the initial attacks, but it's one alternative that you can use to build a field. If you just literally have no cards, you draw for turn, and then that 1 card can turn into 3 cards on the field, which I'll cover. There's Megalobone again, discard something, and then you can superior call grade 1, and if it's 10 or more cards in the drop zone, you can call anything you want. Ideally, you want to call Skull Dragons, Ghost Ships, Beatrice, Columbard if you really need to during the main phase, you know, things of that nature too. So this card is very valuable, and with all the milling, both of these cards are useful in the drop. these cards also feel good when you actually like guard with them too. They'll essentially just go to the drop zone, which they meant to be anyway. So you get like the best usage of that card per se. And over here we have the 3 Navigator and the 2 Ripple Banshee. Now with Navigator, like I said, it's, you know, rest 2 cards, you can mill 5 cards. You can also do this more than once per turn, but most of the time you end up doing this on a turn by turn basis. So you get to mill 10 cards, which again fulfills for that Negabone condition, which is big too. So that's why we play 3, because we do want to see it. But also, you know, if we don't see it, then we have the 2 Ruin Shade to kind of help with that too. So it kind of helps with that, just having those options to mill. And the 2 Ripple Banshee, like I said, when it's called from the drop zone, you can Soul Blast 1, you can draw a card and it gets plus 4k until the end of the turn. So this is a 12k hitter on its own. This can become 17k with the Nightrose, or a really good booster too on top of that too. So Ripple Banshee is still really good. And again, it's another card that you can guard with or mill. That's very, very important to be able to use from the drop zone to get its skill off too. So for the triggers, we are playing 11 crit, we are playing 1 draw PG and 4 heals, of course, and of course our start over here. So with the crit pressure, we want to be a very aggressive deck too, because we want to finish games. And so nothing's more scarier than Skull Dragons have criticals on them, right? And so, you know, you play the 8 crit vanilla that you want to do. You could also play, in addition to the Rampage, Sentinel crit. That's the 30k Sentinel, and also the draw PG. So that ratio can determine from player to player. I think this is the more aggressive way. I know players such as like Cameron Stewart and of course Gleaming Garmore, they have done well with this deck too. And so it's a little bit different too, with a little bit of the tweaks. But I've seen either the 2-2 or the 3-1 where you can have that aggressiveness. And I know that Gleaming Garmore actually switched to the 3-1 ratio. That helped with her aggressiveness in that game too. And so kudos to those players too for topping for the BSFL. Cameron Stewart got first place overall as well for the AO event. And of course, Gleaming Garmore just got first on Visions tournament that they're doing the remote fight, extreme fight. That's recently new as well. So that's kudos to those amigos as well. And so with the 4 heal, you want to have that. You can use any heal because ultimately you don't want Beatrice to be the Vanguard, but you never know in those turns, so why not have ghosties? It's really up to that point. And then of course with the draw PG, like I said, you're also, you know, got to keep in mind that you want to be aggressive, but you're also a protect deck. So you can generate protect 1 markers, and so sometimes you may need to discard 2, where, you know, the Sentinel card is something that you want to drop as 1 card guard. That could be key, and it could be recycled with cards such as Greed Shade too. So that way you're able to live and preserve a certain amount of hand size too, and keep going and actually win. So that combo play that I was explaining earlier about like using Cutlass to generate like a 3 regard column, field essentially to be, you know, starting off with something. If you only, you know, had no cards in hand and you drew for a turn, you can discard that card for Negabone, use Negabone to actually revive a card such as, you know, Beatrice over here, and she can Soul Blast, and she can bring like, let's say, Skull Dragon over here on the right, and then you can use Dancing Cutlass to put it behind Beatrice and countercharge. And so what this does, it actually just enables your turn. So that way that when you attack, this is 12 plus 6, so that's 18. 18 plus 10 is 28k. So we retire these 2 units because of Nightrose's ability. We have Skull Dragon, however big it is, it will die as well. And again, when Nightrose attacks, you can Counter Blast 1. Use the Beatrice again, behind over here, Soul Blast 1. Then you can revive Skull Dragon, and also, where's the second one? There it is. A second Skull Dragon attack as well. So as you can see, you can still get at least 3 Skull Dragon attacks and be able to build a decent field to have that pressure. 22k base attack. This is during the deck profile, so it's a bit stacked. Any triggers apply to them, and then boom. And it does really well on actually taking advantage of that too as well. Again, amigos, that's the deck profile. I hope you really enjoyed it. Again, this is more kudos to those amigos that I mentioned, Cameron Stewart and Gleaming Garmore. I have actually done interview articles for them, so you can see their interview articles in the description, so feel free to click on that if you want to read more into it. Very helpful mindset that they've actually, you know, mentioned during that interview to really that built this deck as a whole. And then you can see as a player like Gleaming Garmore take that mindset and that list and tweak it to her experience and actually just do well with it as well too. So if you like the video, give it a like below too. You know, comment down below, what are your thoughts? What are some things that you're trying in V Premium now with the new stuff coming out? I know Pinot Noir is actually a thing now, so once it comes out to the English, then I might be doing something for that too as well. And you know, let me know some ideas and thoughts that you may have too. And if you like the video, like it, share it with an amigo that likes granblue too as well, and subscribe. Bye.